yesterday I didn't do a video yesterday, and it was more so because I was gathering my thoughts together. God was dealing with me on some issues that was also revealed to me as well. You know, I did a video where it says your words will convict you. And the stuff that I was saying was true, but it was also bringing me to revelation of some of my own stuff as well. So, I mean, I'm no exemption to the rule. We all get convicted by our words. And more so, my word, I got convicted on just trusting the Lord. And with all the stuff that is happening over here, and I know some people might not believe in God, but there's one thing about me. Like, I stand on his word. Like, I believe in God, and nothing and nobody is going to deter me from that. I believe in his son, Jesus, and that he gave his life from all our sins, and that through him is the only way for redemption in order to see eternity in peace with the Lord and everybody else that's believing the same thing. I am one that believes there's no religion because the religion is man-made, and religion causes confusion, and God is not the author of confusion. I believe that God's kingdom is a kingdom, and it is what it is. It's a government, and that's how he rules it. I also believe that people alter and change stuff to fix for their own liking versus just simply looking at it for what it is. But I also believe in people hearing people out and looking at it from a different perspective, so that way you can learn and people can learn the right way. So I know a lot of people on this platform don't like to talk about religion and God and stuff and politics, but look, I can not talk about politics. I'm not a big political person, but I will address some things when they happen, whether for the being of whether or not it's right or wrong. But when it comes to religion and what I stand on, it is who I am. You know, my beliefs are strong and I stand on them, and I'm not ashamed to tell anybody. I'm not ashamed, nor would I be deterred from saying it from anybody that come in contact with me. Because just like you equally believe there isn't, or you believe in something else, I believe in the one true God. And I also believe that we all make mistakes and we all have issues that God is not pleased on. You know, yesterday I came across, and I'll probably link it to this video in my comment section. I saw this video where it was a AI edited video, and basically it was just taking what the word of God said and just implementing it inside of AI. And I'm not real big on AI, y'all, because I think it's just taking over, and I think this is probably what's going to lead us until biblical times of the mark of the beast and everything else. And so there's no stopping it. I don't think by me not liking it, it's going to change anything, because absolutely not. Everything is still going to be placed, but it's not placed on my heart to want to even intertwine with a lot of stuff that is happening with that, you know, and it might change. God might see fit for me to say and do otherwise than how I feel, because it's not my will, but it's of God's. And if you go back and you look at all my videos from the past, back when I was talking about AI and my beliefs and how I allow God to use me, I continue to do that. That has never changed. And I wanted to kind of start this video off because in sharing people's perspective and looking at things on people's perspectives, or should I say, I also have a perspective and I have an opinion. And whenever it's me, I will let you know where it's me, and I think if this is my opinion, it's how I feel. Whenever it's God-given, I allow God to speak to me and say what is needed, and whoever will receive it shall. And, you know, some people might be looking at me, well, you don't look like a woman of God, or you don't completely act like a look. Some things that you do, they don't say you're a woman of God. Well, it's some things that we all do that says otherwise on what we stand on. It's because God uses us for who we are. Right? He uses us for his purpose, you know. So God knows who I am. Before he called me into his army, he knew who I was. And he deals with me consistently on stuff that's not right. and the stuff that I need to work on as a Christian woman. But what God also does is he masks me. So that way, the stuff that I can connect with others on that typically might not be what others see as the typical Christian. He allows me to get in those positions so I can talk to and give my word to whoever the word is needed to be given to. And I don't know half of the time, almost 99.9% of the time, who the message is for. I don't. I just allow whatever message he wants me to be utilized as said. So that way, whoever it's meant for, and sometimes it probably even be meant for me, the message that I'm saying. And you will know that by your own convictions. That's why I say, y'all, we convict ourselves. Our convictions convict us. And once you are willing to allow your convictions to address your issues, then you can self-reflect and work on those things, and God can help you. And make no bones about it, y'all. When I say I self-reflect and self-center, it ain't me who's doing that. It ain't nothing but the good Lord himself. That's it. It's just me who has given him the will to do so. You know, he give us free will. And my will is to allow God to use me however he allows himself to use me. And sometimes when I do be given the message, sometimes self want to interject. And so you might hear me say something that ain't godly. And I go, that's me, y'all. And the reason I'm saying that's me, because I'm trying to let y'all know that's the person in me that I'm still working on. That ain't from God. Okay, that's me. And I'm honest enough to tell people that. I don't want to mislead absolutely anybody. But when I tell you God can use anything and anybody, he can. Even if you don't want him to use you, he can still take that situation and use it for his good. So don't be misled, or don't be misinformed about what's actually going on. You know, I got the analogy of tea, because everybody be like, "Oh, girl, what's the tea? I want to hear the tea." You know, and so everybody flock on what's the tea, right? And tea has many flavors. Right? Tea has many flavors. And some flavors, even though people like tea, they don't necessarily like that flavor. Right? And so if it's not the flavor of tea that you enjoy, it's okay to go find the flavor that you need. And I will not take offense to it at all, because maybe I'm just not your cup of tea. And I say that not in a sarcastic way. I say that in the most humblest way I know how. Because sometimes people think that you got to all agree, or you got to see it for this, or you got to see it for that. You know, that's how I kind of see who really watches my videos and who don't, by the comments they make in my comment section. Because a lot of times, you ain't really watching my video if you're saying what you're saying, because, you know, and I see all things. I see messages from other people's platform. I see messages on live. I don't comment on a lot of stuff. I just watch. And that should be evident now to some people that, oh, she does watch. You know, just because I'm not commenting, I'm watching, I'm reading, I'm taking in. And sometimes I don't necessarily comment right off the bat, because I want to make sure it's just not my own self that's reacting to what I'm seeing. And so I allow God to deal with me about what I saw before I actually speak on it. So that way it comes out the way it needs to. Because if I react from what I see, a lot of the times it's not going to come across right. You know, and that's why I even said when we were talking about Dante on a live the other night, maybe he can't handle lives because it's so direct and he ain't got an opportunity to process that, right? And that kind of, you know, it hit me. You do that a lot too. Sometimes you don't react to a lot of stuff. And that's not me, y'all. That's God holding me back. Because if it was me to react, I keep telling y'all, a lot of y'all wouldn't really care for the person that I am. But God knew who I was. And should I say the person that I changed from. So when I say I am, I say who I was versus who I am now. So, but that person is still within me. It's just God keeps it away from me, you know. God gives me a conscience. God give me because I do surrender my will over to him, God give me the ability to sometimes see me for who I am and then say, here's your choice, here's your chance. Either you do the right thing or you do the wrong. But every now and then, sometimes the wrong do still slip up in there. But I have to acknowledge it. I acknowledge the wrong that I say, or that's me, y'all. And I'm big enough to admit that. At least I tell you. Some people won't, right? I'm being real with you. So when I keep telling people, this is who I am, this is who I am, this is me, you're not going to catch no different version of me outside of this platform. In fact, my kids been saying, "Oh, this woman right here, she's a trip." Like, they just really don't know that's who she is, But so, and I can laugh, and I can make fun of that because I know that is what it is, But as you stick around and you get to know me, you'll understand, that's Tamara. And that's where I could say, or that skit, whatever you want to call me. And that's why I can say with Dante, I don't know him as the person outside of this platform, but the person, if he is the person that's outside the platform, if he's saying to you, and he does say that, I'm giving you my real life. So if he's saying this is who he is, then based off of his past and how he does, I can say, oh, that's just Dante. But to him, he might say, well, people don't know me. They just know, they think they know me. People act like they know me. Well, Dante, if you're giving them the authentic you, they know who you are because you're showing them. And he has to process that on his own time. But just like we say that, God knows who we are. And God uses who we are for his benefit, whether it's what you struggle with or what you're strong on. But you have to trust that no matter what God allows to come out of you in order to be able to be used for his benefit, that if you're his, he's going to pull you back when it's necessary. So he'll only let you go so far because he knows who you are. And when he sees that whatever he's allowing to be used for his benefit or to help others is about to get out of control, he will snatch you back. And if your will is to let God's will be, you will allow him to. But far too many times, sometimes people, when it gets to that point, they no longer listen to what God says is their will, and they just do whatever they want to do. And I have found myself in those situations too, where I done cussed at somebody on this goddamn platform because they done got to me, and I just took too much. I couldn't deal with it, But then after the fact, I had to say, Lord, forgive me for acting a fool like that because you had already had it worked out. And that's part of my issues. Like, part of my issue is giving up control and allowing God to do what he do, And that's a battle within me that I got to deal with. I got to learn to accept the things that I cannot change. And it makes me think of another story. But before I go off to that story, I'll probably share that with y'all one day. But it was a gentleman I used to talk to, and he had Serenity Prayer on his arm. And when I first read it, and I was like, oh man, that is so sweet, because I knew the depth of what it meant, what it meant to him. And I'll probably share a little bit of that story because it involves my life later on when it's necessary. But that's part of my struggle of releasing control. And part of releasing control is you have to trust in the Lord. You have to trust in the Lord when you release that control. And that's where your trust in God come from. So when I say that, I'm not saying I don't trust in God. I say I falter in fully trusting in God. And I'm honest enough to tell y'all I do that from time to time. And that's because I haven't completely gave up my control of me trying to fix everything and just letting God fix it. Because it's something about when God allowed me to do things because he planted things in me that allows me to do it. But it's some things he just solely want me to trust him on that sometimes I struggle with, and I just don't do it the correct way. And then when he convicts me, he lets me see, well, you did not trust me. But sometimes he creates a situation where he knows it's going to affect you, and he makes it to where you can't do anything about it. Because one, you don't even know what's going on, right? So now he allows what happened to happen. And all you can do when you find out is just trust in God and tell God thank you. And that's kind of what happened with me and my family yesterday. So yesterday, after the live from Live with Trey, and a lot of things happen with, and that's why I say I think we're connected for a reason, because it brings out so much in so many, and it allows me to deal with things inadvertently. What y'all may think I am, because he said on his live, you ever thought about being a counselor because you can help people? And I told him, man, I'm still trying to help myself. No, he didn't say that. And I'm telling him, I'm still trying to help myself. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But that could have been a message where God was just speaking through him to get to me to say, this is your calling and this is what you need to do. And maybe that's why I am so comfortable with talking and sharing my story, which we know a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people can't. And so maybe and when he said that after the live, when God dealt with me on what I said back, I got convicted even on that too. I'm like, maybe that's where God wants me to go. And I'm fighting against it because I still got issues, and I know I have issues. But that's where you got to trust in God. You got to say, well, if you trust me enough that I'll deal with your issues while you allow me to allow others to deal with theirs. So thank you, Trey, for allowing God to use me. And I know you're one that don't like really talk about God on you. Not to say you don't believe, y'all, but he just don't like to have those conversations on his channel. But I'm going to say thank you for allowing God to use you and say that word through you. Because I've heard that message so many times in my life, and I heard it, and I've taken it, and I've processed it, and I've told people thank you, and I've always gave kickback to it. But this is the one time I heard it, and I gave kickback, and now I was completely convicted about what I said. So thank you for allowing God to use you, and although you may not have seen it like that, I did. So, like I keep saying, we're all connected for a reason. It's not by a mistake or mishap. It's by design. And yesterday, after that live, stuff get dumped into me. That's why I have to write it down, because I have to determine whether it's coming from God or whether it's coming from how I'm feeling or whatever. And I have to process that. And yesterday, a message was given to me, and you're hearing some of that message now. But the way I was processing, I started, and a lot of times when messages are given to me, I speak it out. I speak it out so I can hear it. And I want to make sure it ain't me. I want to make sure it's God. And then sometimes I just come on here, hit record, and God just starts speaking through me. And sometimes it's a little bit of both. His message start coming through, and I'll be like, whoa, I'm surprised at what was just said, because I was going somewhere else with it, but a thought was placed inside me to say something else. And I was going over what I was going to record on yesterday based off of what was given to me. And I had to go to the grocery store. And so that's why I didn't do the video. But I said once I get back from the grocery store, I was going to do the message. And this comes as two parts, because the reason why I didn't do the video was because after I heard what I heard, and I was dealing with the process, all the stuff I was processing through, I didn't do it because I had to talk with my family. I had to be there with my family because I got some great bad news yesterday, and then I got some bad news yesterday. And the message that was given to me, I didn't say it yesterday. And part of me feel, and I'm only thinking that maybe I was still supposed to say it, but I didn't. So I'm convicted at not bringing it during that time, because who knows, maybe somebody needed to hear it at that time. And I just didn't say the message. But just because I didn't say it, God will still get it to whoever he need them to. But we miss our blessings when we step outside of God's will. So if I'm convicted on that I didn't post that video, then there's a reason as to why I'm convicted on it. And if I'm doing God's will, then I got to allow God to use me. So we was walking to the store yesterday. And I meant in the back of my mind, y'all, I'm going to do this video when I get back. we're walking to the store, and the store is about a 45-minute walk. It gives us exercise so we can, get that. But our situation is I don't have a car here with me and my daughter. So either I rent a car and I work in order to make the money, or I just take cabs. But the thing about where we're at is so small, and there's not really a lot when a cab driver come here. And I understand it because I used to be a cab driver as well as I ran a cab company. So I understand their take on it. A lot of times drivers don't want to come to us because they're not really making a profit off of it. So what I try to do is offer a bigger tip to make it so if those that know, oh, that's her, she tips good, I try to make it worth their while to come and get me, even though the call says the call's crap. You're not going to make but $4 or $5. I make sure I take care of my drivers. Just like I made sure I take care of my drivers when I was running the company. And just like when I was a driver, I wish people would have took care of me. That happens sometimes. And man, I used to get some crazy tips. My biggest to this day was a $300 tip. $300. Man just drove up there. I ain't took him nowhere. He went to the ATM. He got the money. He gave, here you go, this for him. And I think I've shared that story, in previous videos. But as we're walking to the store, before we went to the store, I kept telling my daughter, we gotta hurry up and get out of here because time ain't on our side. We literally woke up too late. The sky looked like it was getting ready to rain. And I'm like, we gotta hurry up. We gotta go. Once we get there, we're good. But until we get there, we might get rained on. So I'm trying to tell her, hurry up, let's go. And we had to go do our monthly shopping because typically what we do is we shop at the beginning of the month. We get everything that we kind of need throughout the month. And we just, every week after that, we're just doing fill-ins. So our first grocery shop at the beginning of the month is huge, right? Even for the two of us. And right before we got ready to cross over to the grocery store, it sounded like something that appeared to be thundering. Now, at the time when it happened, I hadn't quite got over a tree so that when my vision can show it wasn't thunder, it was a plane, right? And my daughter said, Mama, you was right. The one that I'm here with, I told you she's artistic. She go, Mom, you was right. Whew, we just made it. And I'm thinking to myself, no, that wasn't thunder. That was a plane. But okay. But I just told, but let's hurry and get on in there. So, but as I'm getting ready to cross over the street, I look up and I catch the plane and a thought comes in my head. Are you really scared of flying or are you scared of giving up control? And it hit me so fast that when it hit me, I said it to my daughter out loud. And I said, man, it just dawned on me. Maybe it's not flying I'm scared of. It's just me simply, I don't have no control over flying. Because I'm so used to doing everything on my own. I'm so used to, I've driven myself for years. I've teach people how to do stuff but I had this fear before I was ever a cab driver. So it's surely the fear of flying, because I've always had this dream that I probably would pass in a plane accident. And then when I made up in my mind, I was never getting on a plane. It was the plane crashed down on top of me. And here we is, I'm staring up and I'm telling you, it happened so fast. I'm telling you what was going through me, but it happened like that. And it brought me back to when I was taking this pilot to the airport. He was the actual pilot on Delta, actually. And we got into a discussion about my fear of flying. And he was the one who told me, I don't think it's so much that you're scared to fly. I think it's that you're scared to give up control. And he shared a story with me about him. He said, because so many people trust me when they get in my plane, that I'm going to get them into that destination. He said, but the truth is, he said, you deal with that as a pilot every time you fly that plane, that you make one wrong mistake, you can end it all for everybody, And if something happened to me, then it falls on my co-pilot that he has to step in, or she has to step in order to take control over the plane. And if neither one of us can do it, hundreds of lives are in jeopardy, right? So he was like, every person that gets on the plane, they give up control. They trust that me or my co-pilot is going to get them to their destination. So it's not about you're scared. It's about you don't want to give up control. He said, and that's a fear a lot of people go through when it comes down to planes. And I'm like, nah, it's because I'm scared I'm going to pass away because I keep having dreams, and I still have this dream to this day. And it never really dawned on me, even though he said it to me at that time, I'm still processing the fact that I keep having these dreams. That's the way I'm leaving here, right? And that's what I was really afraid of. But God didn't give us the spirit of fear, not even in death. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall feel no evil, for God is with me. So then why am I even fearing death, right? If God says, even in death, I'm with you. And if I trust him, why am I fearing death? So it brought me back to the conversation with the pilot. You fear up giving control. And he's right. So as we're walking across the street, I'm saying to my daughter, man, this simple noise from the plane makes me think of the pilot that he told me the story about how I don't want to give up control. And maybe that is what it is. I just really don't want to give up control. And I got to work on that and ask God to deal with me on that, to help me with things I can't control, you know, and accept it for what it is. And ultimately just to trust him. And this is what I'm telling my daughter as we're walking inside the store. And she was like, well, the people got to trust the people. You got to trust the pilot too, Mama. I was like, no, first I got to trust God. Because just like that pilot said, if something happens to him or the co-pilots, I'm going to need a miracle to make sure I get out of this plane alive. So I got to trust God first. Then I trust the pilot and the co-pilot. But I was just thinking, like, man, I just got convicted again. Because my issue is I have to learn to give up control. Same message I've heard, but it hit me differently now that I experienced flying, because that's how I got here with my daughter. I flew. I faced my fears and I flew. But ultimately, and I didn't pass away, you know. But ultimately, that is what it is. It's all about control and trust. And instead of me trusting in man, my real trust needs to be in God. Now, mind you, we had this conversation before I even knew anything that was going on in my life that had major effect on me personally, because what I'm about to share, without going into details, actually happened to my children. And I ain't say child, I said children. It was two of my children in that car. And anyway, we was inside the grocery store. I got a phone call from my mom, and she had said, how's your weather? Because she was kind of nervous. She was like, how's your weather? And I was like, oh, it's good here. You know, we had some bad rain a couple of weeks ago, but now it's good. I was just calling to make sure y'all okay. I had to go drive because the girls had left something at my house. They went to my dad's house for 4th of July. I was unable to attend because of certain situations. So I had to I didn't get to go. So I had my little sparklers, and me and my daughter was on the balcony waving sparklers and on FaceTime with everybody. But everybody was now being dispersed back to their homes, and it was heavy on my heart to make sure I stay in contact with everybody until I know everybody made it safe. Because with everything else I'm dealing with now, I just want to make sure my family's okay, and a big portion of my children was on this trip. It was only 2 that wasn't on there, and my grandkids were all on this trip. There was the only 2 that wasn't here at my mama's house traveling was my daughter I'm here with now, and my daughter who they made her work. So her and her husband and her 2 kids, they couldn't go. But my 3 grandchildren and my 3 kids was on that road heading back to Florida from North Carolina. And I'm like, Lord, I'm praying, saying all kind of prayer. Lord, please protect my babies. And I said that even in our family group chat. Lord, please protect my babies. Make sure they make it home, And so I was texting everybody all throughout the day, just making sure they was okay, because my sister was on this trip with her husband as well, coming from our parents' house. My brother was heading, so my sister and her husband was going back to Florida. They all had left at different times, but not so far from each other. I think it was like 10 minutes or whatever. So it was kind of traveling behind each other. my brother had left with him and his son, and they was heading from North Carolina back to Alabama. So I'm talking to him as well. Are you okay, bro? How you doing? Now, I ain't made it home since I'm still in Georgia. I'm like, okay. So I'm just keeping an eye on everybody while I'm still dealing with a lot of stuff and stress myself. So I was stressed out yesterday. Just from some of the stuff that I have shared with y'all that I'm going through here. And during the conversation, my kids were saying how the weather was bad, that the weather was bad on the road. And I'm praying to God, Lord, please get my kids home. They're saying they can't even see the road half of the time. I'm like, Lord, please get my babies home. And I'm still doing what I'm doing, fumbling around here. If y'all ever seen this desk right here, y'all be like, oh, wow, it looks like a real office desk. Like, I'm fumbling, doing my stuff. You know, I'm trying to figure out what I'm finna talk about on this and that and all that other stuff and making plans for the upcoming week. So I get these chips right here. I'm gonna show you the chips. I get these chips. And y'all, anybody know me? No, I'm not a big vegetable eater like that. I have a limited amount of vegetables that I eat. So the fact that I'm sitting up here, these became my new favorite chips. I literally picked these chips over regular chips because they're so delicious, right? So, so I put this on the group chat. Well, I was like, oh man, these are some good chips. Y'all need to try these. Misha, my daughter here, got me hooked on them. Oh, they're so good. I'm going on about chips in the group chat while we're talking or whatever. Unbeknownst to me, what is going on. So by the time my second daughter, the one I call twin, the one who acted just like me before the change, she called me and she upset. And she like, Mama, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, hold up, what you talking about? Okay, for those that don't know, my kids growing up, I allowed them not to be disrespectful, but if you feel you need to be heard, you express that. You don't hold anything. You don't let nobody tell you that you can't express yourself. And I've always geared into my kids that y'all stick together, because it's just so many times that family turn their backs on me, and all this division in my family and stuff like that, it's not going to happen, not in Tamara's family. We are a family. We grow together or we fall down together. And I have drilled that in my kids' head since I knew, as soon as I can recall back. Y'all stick together no matter what. And even if y'all have differences, y'all figure that mess out and y'all get it back together. Right? So that's even with me. You have an issue with me, you might get mad at me, but at the end of the day, we're gonna figure this out before it goes too far. But to me, even though I might come off there's something you might not like, I still love you and I wish the best for you. And I will always be there for you, because not too many people in my life have been there for me. And so I did not want to continue that generational curse when it came to my kids. So she called me and she was expressing herself. And so she goes, Mama, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You sitting here talking about chips on a text message, and we darn near about to lose our life. And I'm like, hold up, what? But back then, what you talking about? There's nothing on the text message telling me anything about you losing a life. In fact, I did see you say something about it was a tropical storm, but there was nothing else said after that. You better go read your message, girl. So then she was like, I forgot. It was just so much stuff going on, I forgot. So, she's a bit animated like a mama. But the story was, what the story was, she was just, her adrenaline was still going. And so she was telling me about an accident they almost got into. And in this particular accident, somebody lost control of their car where they hydroplaned. And so the car was facing them instead of facing in the direction everybody else was going. Unfortunately, I think the car did get in an accident, but they ended up avoided the accident. My son, who was actually driving, he was able to remain calm. Now, this is the funny part about that. When they was getting ready to go drive to North Carolina, I told my daughter, I said, you sure you want him to drive? But we all know how he drives. You better stay up and alert when he's driving, only to see my son's scales. Okay, and of course, like, Mama, I told you, I know what I'm doing here. I'm like, no, you better fall on your knees. But, so she telling me about how this car had hydroplaned, it's facing them, and my son is calm, and I get his side of the story on what kept him calm during that time. because I called him and talked to him as well. But she's explaining, and she's telling me she's freaking out because all she could see was this car coming at them, and she just thought that was it. So she did one of these numbers. I was like, what was he? My grandbaby. What was it? I'm glad y'all okay. What was she doing? She was howling and screaming, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, hopefully talk with her so that way this don't scar her, because this could make her never want to get in the car again or whatever. To talk to her or whatnot. And so my daughter, she telling me the story on what was going on and some other stuff that was the issue, because the car she was in was actually by someone I referred her to years ago when it came to rental cars. And I met him when I was a cab driver, and he has a fleet of cars. So there was an issue going on with that, but I was trying to reaffirm her that he's not like that, at least not unless he changed. He'll take care of you, which in the end he did. So thank God, he was still who I thought he was. And, but she was sharing her story, but she was basically saying how on the text message, she took it as like, my mama acting like a blonde. Like, this woman is not sitting here paying attention to what I'm saying. I'm like, child, you didn't tell me nothing, so how am I supposed to know? I said, but I'm glad. I said, I'm kind of glad I didn't know, just with everything that was going on. That probably would have just tipped me over the scales, because then, the stress would have really been on, because I got a whole bunch of stuff I'm dealing with now that I don't really even talk about with a lot of people. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of stuff on how to make this happen. And so I was like, I'm glad God kept that away from me. I'm glad God did not allow me to know what was going on, because what could I do anyway other than trust God? But when she was telling the story, she was saying, Mama, if I don't care what anybody have ever said about you to us in their lives, or how they feel about you or whatever, she was like, or what you had to do, but one thing they ain't never finna take from my mama, that she did what she had to do for her kids, and what she put inside of us to make sure we stick together. And Mama, we stuck together like we ain't never stuck together before today. And so she was just, I was smiling from ear to ear when she was telling me, just listening. So she's saying, nobody can take that. Nobody can take that from you. And so she was just telling me, how what had happened and whatever. So I'm hearing her version of it, and I was like, well, I'm gonna call your brother and I'm gonna talk to your brother. But what I want you to do, I said, thank you, baby. I love you. I'm glad y'all made it there. I was not being a blonde. I didn't know, because you didn't say anything, but God allowed me not to, because just all the stuff that I'm stressing over right now that probably would have, I don't know if I could have really dealt with that, on top of the other stuff that I found out later that same day I found out. I found out before she had told me the story. So I had already knew at this point. But just imagine if all of that was hitting me with how I was, thank God. I just say thank God. So I told her, I said, well, what you need to do, baby, is thank God. Tell God, thank you. I said, because she said, God love me. God love me. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Jesus. God love me. I say, and give him praise. You grab your Bible, you grab your phone, you grab whatever you need to get in your word, and you read that word, and you tell him, thank you. Because it ain't a darn thing Mama could have did. It was all God. It was all God. I said, but I'm going to call your brother, and I'm going to tell her. Because she was just saying how proud she was of him, because she was also saying how now, my son, who is Malachi, y'all know his name is Malachi. She's like, man, the way he was handling business and stuff, she's like, Mom, I'm so proud of him. Like, that's their little brother. That's their youngest brother. And he literally stood up for them because with everything that was going on. He was like, no, he wasn't letting nobody, he was protecting his sister. He wasn't letting nobody say nothing to his sister. And then the way he knew about what he was talking about with the cars, Mama, oh my God. She was like, she was just so excited. And so I was excited. I was like, well, he learned well, because every time his mama was up under the hood, so was he. Because I was trying to teach him what my daddy taught me. I said, so your granddad gonna be proud when I tell him this part of the story, that his grandson, it done passed on to his grandson. And my son loves cars. He loves cars all around. So the mechanic side of it, he'll do it. I don't think he's really don't really care to do that, but he will do it if necessary. So whenever it came to issues where I couldn't do something because I wasn't strong enough, my son would step in and he would do it. But every time I was up under the hood, so was he. So I was just teaching him the way my father taught me. And so she was like, Mama Malachi was on point. Like, that boy, oh man, I was like, girl, you just don't know how hard I'm smiling right now. I said, but I'm gonna call your brother. I'm gonna talk to your brother. I want to hear what he got to tell me about the story as well. And so I was like, well, you just have to calm down. I said, because you're like me. I said, and your brother, I guess your brother like me too, because whenever it's situation that I'm in, and I think I'm gonna make a video about my guardian angel and about an angel that protects me. The reason I'm here to this day, there's a reason why I'm still here, because a couple of years ago Tamara was supposed to be gone. I wasn't supposed to be on the face of this earth, but because of my guardian angel, God spared my life, and he did it for a reason, and that's why my life is owed to him. And so I told her, she just like me after the fact. I said, the way you're acting right now is how I act after it's all done. But in the midst of it, I have a sense of calm about me that when something comes up, I can do what I need to do during that time. But when it's over and the reality hit me that what I just went through, now I'm excited. I can't calm down. My nerves, my heart's palpitating. And I'm glad I'm like that, because if all that happened while it's happening, then I could have other issues going on. So I said, well, apparently your brother is just like me too, because that's the exact same thing how I probably would have handled the situation. She said, but me just still remained calm the whole time. Like, he was going off, but he remained calm the whole time. So I was like, wow. I said, now, I know your brother can get a temper every now and then, but I ain't never known him to get a temper like this, not when he's standing up to no other man. And so she was like, me either. She said, but oh my God, you should have seen it, Mama. So she was like, man, we all got a little bit of you in us, every last one of us. And so I was laughing, but I was praying, and I was thanking God that he pulled my children through that. And I called my son, and I talked to my son, and I was telling him what, I let him tell me. So I said, so I heard you had an adventurous day today. Tell me what happened. So he's sharing his side of the story on what had happened. So I asked him, I said, well, what kept you calm, huh? What kept you calm while you was driving? And he was like, well, all the water was all over me, and I saw the headlights coming from the car. He was like, I caught a glimpse of the yellow strip on the side of the road, and I just focused on that. So I can't say anything else. I can see lights, I can dodge lights, but I'm gonna focus on this yellow line. And so that's what he focused on. He kind of got himself out of the way. He said, because I couldn't see nothing out of the windshield. And I was like, oh, okay. He was like, but I told you, Mom, I got this. Like that. I say, yeah, you got it. You have told me you got this, but guess who else got it? Because if it wasn't for God, you wouldn't be here. So go ahead and tell the Lord, thank you. And he kept, Mom, I'm cool. I told you. That little cockiness coming up out of him. I was like, no, Mama, I'm cool. I be trying to tell y'all I'm good. Y'all think I don't be knowing how to do it. I said, baby, I know you know how to do it. I said, but you didn't do that on your own. I just wanted to hear what kept you calm doing it. I know, because he's a real mellowed person anyway. And y'all know, I shared part of the story of he was diagnosed with a brain tumor that can't be removed. He still hasn't. And I was just trying to see, like, what was it to him that made him feel like he was calm? And he was like, it was just saying, you know how I am, this is me, the cocky side. I was like, okay, but at the end of the day, we got to still give God and praises to who it really truly came from. And he was like, okay, Mama, okay. Thank you, Jesus. I said, no, for real. You get on your knees after you get off this phone with me, because you ain't doing it for me. You doing it for you. You doing it for yourself, because God spared each and every last one of you. This could have been something totally different. And I know, because I wasn't something similar like that. So I know what God just did. And the fact that God kept that from me, to where I didn't have to worry about that. And, I just trust God that God was going to pull my baby and bring my babies home. I didn't know my babies was getting ready to face what they was facing, but God brought them home. They were safe. And then there was my oldest daughter who stepped in and after the car, because the car did eventually put out to where they couldn't drive it anymore. And they pulled over to an area where my daughter when she went to tell the story, she was like, and Mama, I seen the Confederate flag. I was like, oh God, here we go. Because she think everything's a sundown. She's like, exactly, that's what I was saying. And I was like, oh God, girl. I said, I pulled up in that space several times. Not that particular place you was at, but I know the town because over the years, I done drove through there so many times. And it looks like that, but the people are actually really, really nice. And she was like, and baby, she was going off again. And, but anyway, I was like, the things that God protect us from, you know, that we not even first aware of. And then my oldest daughter, she slipped in. So when they got to this particular town, my daughter, she called my oldest daughter, and she said she had called other people and nobody could come and get her or help them. Like, they were stuck. And even the guy was like, he was going to send, you know, money for her to get home, but, you know, she didn't want to stay out there because she didn't know how long it was going to be for Uber to come and get her or whatever. And my oldest daughter, she called her, and she was like, as soon as she told her, hey, my sister was like, I'm on my way. And they was like, well, you know, we just got home. No, I'm finna leave. I'm finna go get my sister. I don't care if I have to go drive to Africa. I'm on my way to go get my sister. Yeah, I'm going on my way to go get my sister and my brother. She said, those are my siblings. She didn't say her sister. She said my siblings. I'm like, oh, wow. That just made me so proud. And I wanted to call her, but I didn't want to offend anybody if I said it the wrong way. But I just wanted to tell her, you know, how proud I was of her. So I ended up sending her a text message, and I told her how proud I was of her for just standing by her sisters and her brothers and her niece when nobody else was there. They could always count on her, you know, they can count on her. And then, you know, as I'm hearing the whole story, I would just remember the prayer I said to God, like, God, you know, because there was a point in my life where if you listen to my stories of stuff I've been through, it's been a couple of times in my life where I thought of ending everything, and I mean unaliving myself. And at one point, I almost did the ultimate thing because of everything that was going on around me, and ended all for me and my children. But it was the grace of God that kept me from doing that. And I did eventually share that story with my kids and told them what it was. Now some of them, a couple of them, when I first told them, it was like, you gonna do what? And I was like, that was just where my mind was. Thank God I didn't, because had I would have done something, then none of the grandbabies would have been here. None of y'all would have been. I never would have seen any of my son-in-laws. None of this would have. So many things would have altered and changed because of the fact I took things into my own hands instead of allowing and trusting God. And that's kind of the message I want to put out here on this video. Like, we have to trust in God. And God will test us to see just how much we trust him. You know, we have to give credit to where credit is due. And although things are happening in this world, like, the other thing was, I found out my mom's uncle is on his deathbed right now. Like, I don't even know if he passed right now. But it was an uncle that I grew up and I loved, and I ain't even think my kid. I guess I talked about him so much, and when we did go around, they all remembered who he was. I was like, because he was like one of my uncles. I just loved him to death, you know. And long story short, he was my uncle because he was my. I later found out later in life, when I was in my 40s, that he wasn't really my uncle at all. He was my grandfather's best friend. But he had us believing all our lives that he was a black man. And so we would say, no, he's a black man with blue eyes, but he black. We come in all shades and colors, and until the truth came out, no, he really he's a white man. He just think he black because he done married our auntie, and baby, you can't tell him he ain't. But we would call him Uncle Rabbit. His name was Uncle Rabbit. And I don't know if Uncle Rabbit's passed yet, but he was a white man, but we thought he was a black man. We thought he was one that could pass, you know. But later found out he wasn't. And sometimes even when I tell stories about him, I sometimes forget, you know, he ain't, you know, because it's programmed in my head he is, you know. So I had to deal with that. And my mom actually told me that when she was I know how my mom deals with stuff. She doesn't deal with stuff good at all. So I'm asking, like, Like, before I even knew what was going on in the store, my mind was, this is what I'm gonna be honest, what my mind was. When she told me she had to go drive back and it was a storm going on, my mind instantly went on to, why did he let you drive in that rain, knowing you don't even like to drive at night and barely probably can drive in the daytime? That's what was going on in my mind. He should have been the one to take them kids. That stuff. But then I thought about it. I said, my mom can't be somewhat stubborn. He probably said, well, they can get it next time. And she probably said, they don't have to wait. I go take it for him. And so she went ahead and she drove the stuff to my kids. And I had to think about, maybe that's her way of, for the mistake she made with me, that she's going to make sure she does not make any when it comes to my children. Because when it comes to my kids, I can't say she ain't been there for my kids. She has. And she has put her foot down to my father when it comes to him. So I think maybe that is the issue when it came to yesterday. But anyway, she found out the news about Uncle Rabbit, and I'm texting her, and some of the, I could tell by the way she's texting, because she's missing stuff. She's saying stuff that kind of don't make any sense, that she's really dealing with it hard. And so it's just all the stuff that was happening that, I kind of took a break back from what was going on. And it's like so much is going on inside this world. You hear bad weather, say my prayers go out to the people in Texas. We talked about it on Trey Live. We even saw some videos on his. Then Fred did his on FT Reacts. About the flood, because they actually in Texas, and they were shocked that all this was going on, because they couldn't believe it, because they literally, I think Trey had said on his live he thought it was fake, and I'm like, nah, Trey, this is the real deal. This is actually going on, And on Fred thing, I had made a comment where I was saying that it's biblical. If you want to know what's going on, pick up this right here. Pick up the Holy Bible. Read it for yourself. It'll tell you everything. And I will tell you, like I told him on his comment, before you pick up that book and you read it, ask God for full understanding. He'll give it to you if you come to Him in sincerity. And you'll see everything that's happening. It's all predestined. And even in that, it was a message for me that I have to trust in God. My daughter sent a video, and I'm probably put that clip in there. My daughter sent a news reporting about the tropical storm that they had just drove through yesterday. And on it, it said about how it started in South Carolina, went through North Carolina, and I think some parts of Florida probably had caught some of the weather too, but not as bad. But from South Carolina to North Carolina, they got flooded out. I'm still waiting to hear back. I don't know on that, since I seen that clip, have my parents said anything, but I asked. I was like, everybody know, has anybody talked to our parents, make sure they're okay? They're flooded now. I don't know if they're flooded where my parents at, but parts of North Carolina and South Carolina is underwater. This stuff is happening everywhere. Everywhere we're seeing stuff like, and they say catastrophic, biblical storms. We're seeing it in front of our faces, and people are turning a blind eye to what is actually going on. And it's time for you to get it right with God. You ain't got to be perfect. You'll never be perfect until you reach the kingdom of heaven. So it's time for you to get on board, truly worship the one and only God and His Son, Jesus. And because this thing ain't going to get no better. I mean, things might get better in our lives from here to there, but overall, it ain't going to get no better. At some point, and if it ain't already happened from the little peace treaty that they did with Iran and Iraq, there'll be peace. But then for a short while, and then it's going to be all HE double hockey stick and chaos all over the world. So I don't think it's going to, matter of fact, I can take things out of it. I know it's not getting any better. And we can only pray and trust in God. And I know some people probably say, well, If God was real or if God loved us, why did he allow this stuff to happen? And I want y'all to look at that video, what I'm going to link on here, on the video, on my video, this video here, on the very first one. I'm going to link it on there. I'm probably even link it on. But in that video, it talks about how, basically it's talking about how the angels felt when Jesus was on the cross. And God allowed that to happen because he knew he had to. And that was his son. And essentially that was a part of himself. Because they're one and the same. So we can't say, why did God allow stuff like this to happen? Just like my children who are almost in a car accident. You know, we all have guardian angels. But sometimes things does happen. And there's no explanation as to why they're happening or why God is allowing to, but we still have to trust him. And if he can allow his son, who had no reason to be on that cross, because he did absolutely nothing to nobody, the sweetest, most purest soul and being there have ever been and will ever be, that walked the face of this earth. And he allowed that to happen to his son. For us who are not worthy of anything, we deserved our fate. We deserve everything that happens to us because we sin. But yet he still shows us grace and mercy. So don't lose your faith in God. You can ask questions, because there's nothing wrong with asking God questions, but don't doubt for a second that he loves you. Pray for the families that are affected, that had to go through what they had to go through because of what has to happen. Pray for their comfort, pray for them, pray for their souls, pray that God has mercy. But we're all given opportunities. Not one of us can look God in the face when he judges us and say, we wasn't given a chance, because every last one of us are given chances. But at some point, the chances will be gone. But we have to learn how to trust in God. And even when we falter, even myself, when I lack, you know, with some crazy stuff that I've been going through, man, some old habits almost crept back up, trying to get myself again out of it. And I'm like, no. And it was all this that transpired within a day that had me saying, eventually, I kept with not going to let myself could do that. But I put the nail in that coffin and said, absolutely not. Because why? Because I trust in God. And if he got me, my babies, my family through till now, and then he said he'll be with me even unto death, and he will mask me to put me in front of whoever he need to, and control me and pull me back when I try to take over and do what I want to do, but he humbles me so that I don't. If he does all those things and he provides, he might not give me what I want, but he gives me what I need. And sometimes the two things don't look the same. Because through all my trials, all my tribulations, everything I've ever went through in life, when I look back over it and I think about everything I've been through, I was never forsaken. No matter what man did to me, God didn't. So I'm not going to blame God for what I had to go through. It was a lesson. I learned from it. It had to happen. He gave me understanding as to why. And I will continue to serve him. And I'm not ashamed to say that to anybody. So as always, y'all, Be your brothers and your sisters' keeper. Don't forget to like and to subscribe to the channel for more messages from me and whatever God gives me. And as always, keep God first. Toodles.